Adam Schefter just dropped what is probably a terrifying bombshell for a lot of Philadelphia Eagles fans. So I'm going to take they're talking about the offensive coordinator and the search for an offensive coordinator in Philadelphia and all the names being bandied about and how much time this is taking. And he had something that was, like I said, a terrifying bombshell to a lot of Eagles fans. So let's take a listen. It's only about 50 seconds long. We're going to talk about this, and then I have something else that I've got to play you.
Back in here. And Adam, we start with you first. Who are the Eagles talking to about this OC job?
Well, they might not be the big names that Sal in Philadelphia will like, but they've spent the last couple of days talking to Jim Bob Cooter of the Indianapolis Colts, and they've spoken today to Sean Mannion, the Green Bay Packers quarterbacks coach, who a lot of people believe has a bright coaching future, and they're looking for the right fit for one of these jobs. They've been through any number of candidates. They don't appear to be in any rush to name somebody. They have Nick Sirianni, who always could call the offense if they can't find somebody worthy of doing the job, but they're being diligent, looking for the right match. And also, again, the fit is not for everybody, as we've seen. Some people have taken other jobs. Some people have pulled out of consideration. It's not for everybody, but they think there are enough good candidates out there that they're going to come out of this with a good, strong offensive coordinator.
They do? Are we sure they think that? Now, if you were paying attention, the terrifying thing in there is, hey, it's not that big a deal because Nick Sirianni can call plays. No, he can't. No, he cannot. That is a big part of the problem. That is why we're in the situation we're in. That is why Nick went and got Kevin Patullo, because he wanted to be able to call plays and shape the offenses without taking the responsibility and the flack for being bad at it, which is what Nick Sirianni is. And so, I'm not so sure that this is all about a deep dive into all these possible candidates and doing all this research and being thorough. I mean, look, when we knew we wanted Vic Fangio, boom, went and got Vic Fangio. I think that the front office, and I won't go into all the details as to why, because I did that in another video about, but I think you had a lot of guys were scared off about this job because of the constraints that they thought would be put on them because of the involvement of Nick Sirianni. Again, Nick Sirianni being a problem. So I think that the Philadelphia Eagles organization was caught off guard a little bit when they weren't able to get one of the big names out there that everyone thought would be a good fit in Philadelphia. They weren't able to get Brian Daboll. They weren't able to get Mike McDaniel. And then now they're kind of a little bit in panic mode, and they've got this long list of all the. But we're at that point where, barring something crazy, is there anybody in the Eagles fan base, let me know in the comments below, that when they sign an OC, when they sign an offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, that you're going to be excited? They're going to be like, wow, kind of like one of those big free agent signings that we're looking for, that we're still looking for as Philadelphia Phillies fans, by the way. Disastrous offseason there, but I'll eventually I'm going to start getting into them in the video. We got spring training coming up, believe it or not, soon. But I mean, there's no name on this list that is going to be like, oh, wow, I'm excited. This is going to be great. I can't wait to see what the offense looks like, because also in the back of our minds, we're all going to be, hey, how much is Nick's prints on this? Jim Bob Cooter goes back a long way with Nick Sirianni. I think that is a guy they are looking at for Nick Sirianni the same way they did Kevin Patullo. And again, that is going to be a problem for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I've seen some people talk about how, was it oh man, I can't forget the guy's name, and Adam said it too. The Sean, I want to say Merriman, but we know that's the player. About how exciting an opportunity that could be. He could be one of these young wonderkins who completely rearranges everything from an offensive scheme standpoint. But that is like any other time. I think that's great. But we already just lost maybe our best opportunity for a second Super Bowl victory in this window of time here, right? It is not the time to experiment with some young guy like we did with Kevin Patullo and wasted a prime season, because there are no great teams out there right now. I don't care what Seattle just did to San Francisco. There are no great teams out there. This was a golden opportunity for this Philadelphia Eagles team to win a Super Bowl, and we wasted it by having Kevin Patullo as our offensive coordinator. I don't want to do that again. This is not the time to take a what if, to take a high upside, but we have no idea how bad the low side might be with an offensive coordinator. It is not time for that, okay? That is not what we want to be doing. I want to share a couple of other things for you. I thought this was interesting. This came out not that long ago. Tony found it. I don't know why I missed it. Sorry, mostly Eagles tweets who finds some good stuff. But this is really interesting. This goes back to when Nick was originally calling plays in Philadelphia. 7 games into the 2021 season, Nick Sirianni, the Eagles head coach, who brought Gannon with him from Indianapolis, stormed into a meeting venting about how he wasn't sure he could call the offense and manage the game how he needed to. At that point, the Eagles were 2-5. So give the play calling to Shane, Gannon suggested, referring to offensive coordinator Shane Steichen. We all know how that eventually worked out. Well, they're going to look at me like I'm a failure, Gannon remembers Sirianni saying. Who gives an F, Gannon replied. We're going to get fired if we're 3-14. In the past, Sirianni has been vague about saying exactly when he handed over play calling duties to Steichen, but Gannon says it was after the loss in Las Vegas that dropped the Eagles to 2-5. So this, to me, plays in when you listen to Nick Sirianni talk, and this goes into why Kevin Patullo was brought in. It allows Nick that control without the consequences, and this is great insight into that mentality that Nick Sirianni has. He doesn't want consequences for the responsibilities of what he does, at least as an offensive coordinator. It's hard to get away from it as a head coach because you're supposedly responsible for everything. He wants his mitts on the offense without having the consequences of the criticisms when the offense doesn't do well. And and to that point, this is like 10, 15 seconds long. This is obviously Jason Kelce talking about coaches. Take a listen. Now, why am I playing that? One, it goes into what I just said about what Nick was saying about looking like a failure. And it also goes into the fact that a lot of us, and we've talked about this in the past, that it seems every time Nick Sirianni has been on the hot seat in Philadelphia, we get the local Philly media putting out their Jalen Hurts hit pieces. He is the fall guy. He is the distraction for the failures of Nick Sirianni. 100%. I believe that. I think the evidence is overwhelming that happens. I think it's difficult to get away from that. I think we need an offensive coordinator, and that is part of the problem. We need someone who's got the power to separate from Nick Sirianni, run their scheme, run their system. And to that point, I want to leave you with one other thing that I think was absolutely fascinating from Mike McDaniel. While you're listening to this, I want you to think, have I ever heard Nick Sirianni talk like this? Wow. So there's two huge one. Again, have you ever heard Nick talk about that like this? No, Nick is always saying, well, it's something we got to he never knows, right? Oh, I don't know why it's a problem. We got to figure it out though. We got to get it fixed, but I don't know why it's a problem. He's also the opposite in his mentality. You've heard him always talk about keeping things so simple and just letting our talent win. Mike is sitting here telling you the exact opposite of that. Stop putting so much damn pressure on the talent to win every single time and put that talent into situations where they can be successful without purely relying on that talent, where people who have less talent than them can be successful. I've talked about this before. The Eagles don't seem to ever scheme wide receivers wide open. Huge difference, night and day here between Mike McDaniel and what you hear him talking about with his offensive philosophy and taking responsibility, and what we get in Philadelphia with Nick Sirianni. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you checking out this video. Thank you so much. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate it. I will talk to you later.